Hey, sweet faces. Welcome to this week's homework where we're working on fractions, specifically looking at that have different denominators. Now, we know that every time we work with fractions, it is really important that we check our denominators first if we are adding them, subtracting them, comparing, or ordering them. So let's dive in. You'll notice that on the top, I gave you a hint. And this hint is a reminder that you want to find the LCM or the least common multiple before you add. Now remember, the least common multiple is just the smallest. It does not make it the only correct answer, but when we go to simplify our answers, it's going to make it easier. If we use a larger multiple, it might take us a little bit more effort to simplify. So if you found one that was not the least common multiple, that is absolutely fine. But since we have been practicing simplifying, I just wanted to point out to you that finding the least common multiple or the smaller one is just going to be a little bit more helpful when we get to simplifying. All right, with that, let's dive in. We are looking at a 6 and a 2. When I skip count by 2, I find that I can get 6. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply both of these by 3. I'm going to come down here and rewrite. My 5, 6 already has a denominator of 6, so I don't need to do anything with that. Bring down my addition sign. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Carrying our denominator over, because remember, we don't change the denominator when we add or subtract. 5 plus 3 is 8. Now, we talked about this in class, but just in case you need the reminder, we should not leave it this way because this is called an improper fraction. Remember, when the top is bigger than the bottom, we put it into a mixed number. So we start with, okay, my pieces are 6, right? 6 make a whole. So if I have 8, that means I have one whole at the very least, right? I'm taking those 6 pieces out of those 8. And when I take away those 6, I'm left with 2. So simplified, this would be 1 and 2, 6. Now, if you looked at the 6 and you're like, wait a minute, I can simplify that even further. You may have got it down to 1 and 1/3, but this is our goal. Okay, this is our goal. If you got it to simplest form, that is awesome. But if you got to 1 and 2, 6, I am happy. All right, we have 4 and 8. When I skip count, I realize that I can make these both into an 8. Going to rewrite. 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 2 is 8. Plus 5 over 8. Don't change the denominator. 5 and 6 is 11. If 8 make a whole and I take 8 out, I am left with 3/8. Remember, I can check this using the C method. Let me change my color just so you can see our steps. Remember, the C method is called the C method because it looks like we're making a letter C when we check it. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 plus 3 is 11. That gives us back to what we started with. So I'm looking for 1 and 3/8. If you got to 11/8, that is great. That's showing that you can get your common denominator, but we do want to try our best to simplify. This one, we needed to change both denominators. We have a 3, we have a 7. When we skip count, we find that we actually need to multiply them by each other. There is, unfortunately, not a multiple that is smaller than 21. So 3 times 7 is 21. If I do it to the bottom, I do it to the top. 1 times 7 is 7. 4 times 3 is 12. 21 comes down. 7 and 12 is 19. Now, the top is not bigger than the bottom, so we know it's not improper, but we do want to think it through. Can I simplify it? Now, 19 is prime, and they don't share a common factor of 19. They do share 1, but we know if we multiply or divide by 1, it doesn't change it. So this one is going to be simplified. Coming over here, here is another one where if we do the skip counting, we're going to have to multiply them by each other, right? 9 and 5 are not going to share something smaller. So we're going to do 9 times 5. If I do it to the bottom, I do it to the top. 2 times 9, if I do it to the top, I do it to the bottom. It goes both ways. 9 and 5 is 45. There we go. 8 and 5 is 40. 2 and 9 is 18. Let's go ahead and add them up. We have our 45 as our denominator. 40 and 18 is 58. I can take out 45, right? 58 is larger, so I can take out 45, and I end up with 13 over 45, and that is going to be simplest form. Coming down here, we have a 3-pack of fun. We have a 6, a 12, and a 2. And we're going to still do the same thing to find our common denominator. We're going to use our multiples, but this time let's write it out since we have a bunch. We have 2, 4, 6. Well, that matches 1, but it's not big enough to be 12. 8, 10, 12. Okay, let's see if we can get it here. We can make these all into a 12. So that is going to be our goal. So let's put our new denominators down here. We're going to need a 12 and a 12 and a 12. This one is already a 12, so bring it down. Let's do some math magic. 6 times what gives me 12? It's 2. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 6 gives me 12, and 1 times 6 is 6. Don't change the denominator. 7 and 2 is 9. 9 and 6 is 15. We see right here, the top is bigger than the bottom. So I'm going to pull out 12. 12 out of 12 is 1 whole. That's going to leave me with 3 over 12. If I got here, that is awesome. If I simplified by dividing both of these by 3, and I got down to 1 and 1/4, that is awesome. I would accept both of these. On to the last one for this page. We have a 3, a 2, and a 4. This one, if you work it out, it's going to be 12 again. Put our addition signs in, but this time we need to change each of them. So 3 times 4 is 12, 2 times 6 is 12, and 4 times 3 is 12. This gives us a numerator of 8, 6, and 9. 8 and 6 is 14. 14 and 9 is 23 over 12. So we are just shy of 2 wholes. We can pull out 12, so we can pull out 1. Leaves us with the denominator of 12 and 11 pieces left over because 23 minus 12 is 11. This gives us a simplified fraction of 1 and 11 over 12. Any questions? Bring them with you to class. All right, save faces, on to page number 2, where we are continuing to work with unlike denominators. And when we're working with unlike denominators, our best strategy is to find the least common multiple. Either way, you need to make your denominators match before you subtract. And with that, let's dive right in. I have a 10 and a 2. I know that I can multiply by 5. And when I do that, I now have 6 over 10 minus 5 over 10. Don't change the denominator. 6 minus 5 is 1. 1/10 is also in simplest form. So that is our final. Coming over here, if I skip count by 3, I can get to 12 by multiplying by 4. 2 and 4 is 8. 3 and 4 is 12 minus 5 over 12. Don't change the denominator. 8 minus 5 is 3. Now I can simplify this because they both have a common factor of 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 12 divided by 3 is 4. This would be simplest form. So this is your original answer and simplest form. Coming down here, same thing, but up and down, up and down. So this time we're going to skip count by 4. We're going to skip count by 9. And we are going to get 36 by multiplying them by each other. When we do that, we get 27 over 36. And we're subtracting 20 over 36. We don't change our denominator. And when we do 27 minus 20, we get 7. 7 and 36 don't share any factors. 7 is prime. Its only factors are 1 and 7. 7 does not divide into 36, so that is simplest form. Coming over here, it's another one that we have to multiply them by each other. 6 and 7, the best we can get is 42. 1 and 7 is 7, 42. 4 and 6 is 24. When I bring down my denominator and subtract, 24 minus 7 is 17. 17 and 42 do not share any common factors other than 1, which means that is in simplest form. 2 more on this page. We have 3 and 4 as our denominators. At this point, I think most of you see 3 and 4 and think 12. And that's what we're going to do here. Let's rewrite. 2 and 4 is 8, our denominators 12. 1 and 3 is 3, our denominators 12. Bring it over. 8 minus 3 is 5. And our bottom number is 12. This is in simplest form. So leave it be. There's nothing else we can do to make that smaller. We have a 2 and a 3. My brain goes to 6 as our least common multiple. Let's rewrite with 6's as our denominator. 1 and 3 is 3. 1 and 2 is 2. Bring our denominator over. 3 minus 2 is 1. 1/6 is our answer, and it is also simplest form. All right, loves, this time we have some missing values. Missing values where you have to try and decide how we would get that answer. This was tricky. This was really tricky. So I know that I want a denominator of 8, and I need my answer to add up to 7, which means I have 4 pieces missing. And I need to think, okay, what times 4 gives me 8? Because I have a 1. 2 times 4 gives me 8. 3/8 plus 4/8 equals 7/8. So 2 was our missing value. Over here, I know that I want a denominator of 6, so I'm going to change this one. 2 and 2 is 4 over 6 plus 1 over 6. 4 plus 1 is 5. 5 is my missing value. Down here, I know that I want them both to be 12. So I'm going to multiply this by 4 and this by 3. Now again, these were tricky. 3 and 4 is 12. 1 and 4 is 4. I need 5, which means that this top number has to be a 9. I don't know why I was waiting for somebody to answer. So how do I get to 9 over 12? Well, 9 divided by 3 is 3, which means we started with 3/4. All right, over here, I want a denominator of 10. 5 times 2 and 4 times 2 gives me 8 over 10 minus a secret number over 10. I know that 8 minus 7 gives me 1, so that's going to be my missing number. Here I want them to be 21, so times 3 times 7. Rewrite. 2 times 3 is 6, 7 and 3 is 21. 7 and 1 is 7, 7 and 3 is 21. 6 and 7 gives me 13. And then down here, I want them both to be 15. In order for them both to be 15, that means that this has to be a 3. Because 5 times 3 is 15 and 3 times 5 is 15. And I can check it out because the math tells me whether I've done it. We have 10 over 15 minus 9 over 15 equals, there we have it, 1 over 15. If this was super sticky, it was just a way of trying some higher level thinking. But remember, as always, these are optional. So if you get to something and it's super sticky, you're always welcome to take a break or skip it and go on to something else. All right, Sweet Face says, see you on the next page. All right, my loves, and just like that, we are back to regular adding and subtracting, but we have some mixed numbers this time. So we have our LCM, which is still our goal, but we're also throwing in some mixed numbers. We're stretching and growing. So when I look at 6 and I look at 2, my brain says, make them both 6. Now remember, we only have to change the fraction, not the whole. That's going to stay the same. Come along for the ride. I add my whole numbers first. 6 and 9 is 15. 5 and 3 is 8. When I see that, I see I have over a whole. So what do? I'm going to pull out one whole. So I now have 15 plus 1 plus 2 over 6, which is going to be 16 and 2 6. Because remember, when that top number is bigger, I need to do the work. Now, if you got here, that is amazing. If you simplified it even further and you got 16 and 1/3 because you divided both of them by 2, that is phenomenal. Questions, always bring them to class, okay? Over here, some more mixed numbers. And again, we're going to be working on mixed numbers a little bit more closely next week, but I did want to give you a little bit of a stretch. So when we see 9 and 3, I think make them both 9. That's where my brain goes. I can also do my skip counting. 7 and 2/9 plus 2 and 3/9. Adding 7 and 2 is 9. Don't change the denominator. 2 and 3 is 5. This is going to be simplest form. Leave it alone. 9 and 5/9. Coming over here, I have a 6 and an 8. I'm going to make them 24. If you made them 48, that's okay. Just going to make simplifying a little bit harder. 5 and 3 is 8. Let me rewrite this. 21 over 24 and 4 over 24. There we go. 21 plus 4 is going to be 25 over 24. Math emergency. The top is bigger than the bottom. I'm going to take out a whole. 8 plus 1 is 9. If I take away the one whole, which is 24 pieces, I'm left with one extra piece. 9 and 1/24. I have a 4 and a 3. Let's make them 12. 9 and 9/12 plus 3 and 8/12. 9 and 3 is 12. 9 and 8 is 17. We have a math emergency on our hands. The top number is bigger than the bottom number. So I'm going to pull out 12, which is one whole. 12 plus 1 is 13. 17 minus 12, because I'm taking out that whole, leaves me with 5. My answer, 13 and 5/12. Two more on this page. Gotta shrink it a little bit. I made it too big. Here we go. 5 and 7, I'm going to make them both 35. 5 times 7 and 7 times 5. Let's rewrite. 1 and 21 over 35. 6 and 5 over 35. 6 and 1 give me 7. Bring down my denominator. 21 and 5 give me 26. This is simplest form, 7 and 26/35. Last one here, I'm going to make them both into 12. 4 and 6/12 added to 8 and 7/12. 4 and 8 is 12. 7 and 6 is 13. Bring this over. I see that my top number is bigger than my bottom number, which means I can pull out a whole. 12 becomes 13, and I'm left with 1/12. Any questions? Bring them with you to class. All right, loves, last page where we are subtracting, also looking for unlike denominators, using our least common multiple to make them match. Let's dive in over here. We have a 9 and a 3. I'm going to make them both into a 3. 6 and 1/9 minus 3 and 6/9. Now, this is a super stretch, and this is something that we're covering in class, and some of you have found a little bit hard, but it's something that we need to continue to practice because when we borrow or regroup our fractions, it helps us understand how they work. So I can't do 1 minus 6. And when I subtract mixed numbers, I always check my fraction first. I can't do it, so I need to borrow. We know how to borrow. My 6 becomes a 5. Here's the difference. My whole has 9 pieces, which means I do 1 plus 9. it gives me 10. Now I subtract. 5 minus 3 is 2. 10 minus 6 is 4. Remember that this bottom number, this denominator, always decides how much we add when we have to regroup. Coming over here, I'm going to make them both to an 8. 9 and 3/8 minus 4 and 4/8. Again, we have to borrow. I cannot do 3 minus 4. 9 becomes an 8. How much is a whole? It's 8. 3 plus 8 is 11. Now I subtract. 8 minus 4 is 4. 11 minus 4 is 7. 4 and 7/8. We have a 7 and an 8. Unfortunately, we have to multiply them by each other. We have 8 and 24 over 56 minus 6 and 35 over 56. We have to borrow again. I cannot do 24 minus 35. So my 8 becomes a 7. My whole is 56. This was a big one. This one was a super stretch. This means I now have 80. 7 minus 6 is 1. 80 minus 35 is 45. My denominator doesn't change. This was a crazy one, but you don't have to simplify it. If you got this, that is amazing. This one was super stretchy. Over here, I'm going to make them both into 10. Both into 10. I have 5 and 5 over 10 minus 2 and 8 over 10. We have to borrow. I think you're starting to see a pattern. 5 becomes a 4. There's 10 in a whole. 10 plus 5 is 15. So I'm now doing 15 tenths minus 8 tenths. That works. 4 minus 2 is 2. 15 minus 8 is 7. Don't change the denominator. 2 and 7 tenths. Over here, I'm going to make them both 15. Bring over my whole numbers. Remember, I am subtracting. 3 and 5 is 15. Or I'm sorry. 5, this should be 3. Oh my goodness. My brain froze for a second. I multiplied them all by 5. There we go. That makes sense. All right, 3 and 3 is 9, and 2 and 5 is 10. This one is going to work. 7 minus 5 is 2. 10 minus 9 is 1. My denominator is 15. 2 and 1/15. Last question for the week. We're going to make them both 12. Bring over my whole numbers. 4 and 9 over 12. 1 and 10 over 12. I have to borrow for this last one. 9 plus 12 becomes 20, 9, 10, 11, 21. And we're subtracting it from 10. Make this our 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. 21 minus 10 is 11 over 12. 2 and 11/12. Any questions? Bring them with you to class. Have a good weekend.